episode 39. Welcome back, guys. I'm Gideon. This is my co host, Darian.
Hi guys.
Yeah, today we're going to be speaking on the importance of, well, how issues come from abundance and not scarcity. But before we get into that, Mr. Darizi, how's your week been so far?
Yeah, bro. The week has been really good, really good. God has been insane, like speaking to me through crazy ways. Been an amazing week and good consistency with God. That's the most important thing. So yeah, it's been a solid week, I'd have to say. Yeah. And how was your week, bro?
My week's been okay, ups and downs. I will say this topic is very much on point with what I need like, in my life right now because I am chasing like a simple and quiet
Mm.
life. And without getting too much into the episode before we start, I just find it interesting that I'm this is my first year working. I've moved to like Joburg, and I'm working, doing like social stuff. I'm doing all of this, and my life feels just so on the whole time. And all I want is to just have simplicity. And then you kind of have the opposite, where
Sure.
you've been waiting to like get a job, and something you're looking forward to getting next year. And
Mm.
I'm looking at your life. I'm like, that's like pretty. It's pretty sick. Like there's some nice advantages. I'd love to have that right now, but then we all look at like each other's lives and we're like, here's like the upside and the downside to this life,
Yeah.
and then um, but yeah, no, for me this is this topic I needed because I need to just like slow down and I just want to have more time to just like think. I have started taking Sabbaths. I've been taking them for like 2 months now, which is it's pretty nice. But yeah, no, my week's been it's been okay. Yeah, it's a standard week, but gonna kick us off there easy.
Solid, solid. Yes. Very very interesting topic, very applicable topic as well. Um, and yeah, like I just wanted to basically explain the title of it and how you know scarcity was a big issue, like back in the day, where people didn't have as many resources. Like if you think about, for example, like school, right? Like I remember my parents always just say that they never had the internet, and they used to go to the library to get any book. Like if they wanted to know about something, the library was their best friend. That was the only place they could know about certain things, right? They couldn't access the internet like us. They couldn't um, get their knowledge and information from TikToks or YouTube videos like how we do, right? Like that's just how it was back in the day. And then as the years went by, we can see that abundance has actually become a problem. Okay, we try to you get things like social media detoxes, and you get things like people trying to quit certain addictions because of how much technology has progressed and how much abundant technology we have. If we want something, we can instantly get it. And instant gratification is a huge problem in our society today. So many people are struggling with it, and that's where I think kind of the topic came about. And yeah, like I was actually having this conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking. We said that, you know, when it comes to our faith and when it comes to like knowing God and stuff, okay, you think about theologians back in the day, like we think about John Piper, for example. Okay, I think he's almost 80 years old, right? And he's almost 80. Um, he didn't have those the resources we kind of have now, right? Like biblical commentaries, got questions.org. He didn't have JP. He didn't have like all these different resources that allow him to know about God, right? He had to do that work himself. He had to actually get into the Word of God and get revelations from God and the Holy Spirit working through him. And we had this conversation, and this person said to me that people should have no excuse to strengthen their faith because of what we have at our disposal, because of the resources we have to know God, um, which is so crazy. But then again, we have all these crazy distractions, and we'll get into that. So, good. Up to you, my man.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think a lot of us can relate, especially the more you get closer with God. The whole idea of just living, a simple and quiet life, which is something you're going to touch on later. But the more I grow up, I'm like, dude, I want a simple and quiet life. I'm just thinking back to
Mm,
even like, a couple years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, when I got into like self improvement, but I wasn't very like Christ centered. I still knew that like in the end, what I want is to have, to live in like I don't say a smallish town or whatever it is, but to live a life where I can just be with my family and friends. Maybe we have like a ranch, somewhere out in
Mm.
like, um, I don't know. I think of like America, where you get like those places like Utah where there's not
Yeah.
much going on. But even here in South Africa, like there's so many like nice places. Um, Maybe I wouldn't
Yeah.
live in like the Northern Cape or something, but you know
Yo,
what I
no,
mean.
no,
Like
no.
just
No one lives there.
like just like Westville, for example, in Durban, right? Like Westville's it's more chill, but just a chill place where it's
Mm.
just you, your family, and you kind of just getting into like your day-to-day routine. You're doing like things like this, or like meeting up with community and stuff. And I don't want all of this fast, flashy stuff. I don't want like I live in Sandton, which is, dude, Sandton is the richest square
You
mile
live
in
in the heart of it.
it's literally it's the richest square mile in Africa. And I'm like, bruh, that is
Yeah.
wild. But like, I don't like it. Like, I don't like all this stuff.
Mm.
Everywhere you go, you see people like trying to stunt. Being like, I've got this really nice car, whatever it is. It's just flashing lights everywhere. And I'm like, it's cool now.
Yeah.
I'm still young. You're trying to like meet a bunch of people and establish yourself. But in the long run, I don't want that. I want just simple and quiet life. I have my one friend Tian, who I speak about. He got married like over a month ago. Um, I was chatting with him like 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me how like he's this like Afrikaans guy from Pretoria, and he doesn't have Instagram, like he doesn't have those kinds of social medias. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like,
Mm.
absolute win. I'd love that. I wish I didn't have
Yeah.
Instagram. Like we post and stuff on it, but like, yeah, I wish I didn't
Yeah.
have like being able to say you don't have social media is so cool.
It's distracting.
But
Yeah.
also, yeah, he was like, I wake up in the morning, I don't even touch my phone. Like he wakes up and like just imagine it. Imagine waking up in the morning and not touching your phone. Like you
Mm.
just wake up and you just go and you chill, right? Get some sunlight or whatever it is. Like for me, my ideal, and I'm
Sure.
trying to do that now, is like just waking up, going and like brushing teeth and everything, and then getting into the Word. You're reading the Word of God. I love the idea of like a prayer walk. Just going on a walk,
Mm.
talking to God, whatever it is. Like that sounds so cool. Like I think that's what
Yeah.
I definitely want. That I don't know, like many people watching this, because I think I don't know. It just makes sense. I don't know what you think, Darren.
No, 100%. I agree with that. And yeah, like I genuinely aspire to that, like not having social media, but I mean we have to for content and stuff like that. But it's distracting. Like sometimes a reel
Yeah.
just pops up, then it's another one, then it's another one. It's like, oh my word. But yeah, you're so right. And I think it goes back to like the more you consume of the world, the more you become like the world and you want the world. And the more you consume of God and you really get into the word, the more you're going to want God more than that sin, or you're going to want God more than that of the world, right? And that's something like I learned, a big lesson I learned like this year was when I started getting into the word of God and I started reading my Bible more often. That's kind of like I made that decision to like cut out those things that were taking me away from my walk. And there's so many distractions. Like social media is just one of them. A big one I think as well is like going out, right? Like going out with your friends and stuff like that. Weekends, right? And I think I've spoken about this in out of the 39 episodes. I'd probably say I've spoken about this in like 5, 6 of them, maybe even 10 could be. I don't know. But I'd always say like when I'd go out, like the amount of time I spent was crazy. Like crazy amount of time that I'd spend, wasting that time, like just time that I will never get back again. And I could have used that time to spend with God and could have, should have, would have, yes. But they're all lessons that you learn. Okay, it's all things that you take with you. And that's what I always say, like every situation you're in, it's always a lesson that you can learn from it. There's always a lesson you can learn from it and you can take it and you can apply it to your life. But yeah, I think that's so true. And someone always said to me, like, what you focus on, my brother-in-law actually said this to me, he said, like, what you focus on the longest becomes your strongest. And he always used to tell me that. Like when I first met him, like 5 years ago. And he'd always say that, sorry, not 5 years ago, like more than 8 years ago. But he'd always say that, right? Like what you focus on the longest becomes your strongest. And I listened to it and I was like, yeah, it's a cool quote. It sounds nice, but whatever. But you think about it, and that's what happens, right? If you wake up first thing in the morning and you go straight on your phone, you become really good at that. Okay, like that is your thing. Okay, like you get addicted to that, and that's like your hype for the day. And there's so many like disadvantages to going on your phone first thing in the morning. There's a really good book called Dopamine Nation by Dr. Ann Lemke, and she speaks about like how instant dopamine is just one of the most dangerous things for you. But dopamine that's earned through effort is always rewarding. Okay, when something is harder, it's always rewarding in the end. And we live in a world of compromise. Okay, we always compromise what we want most for what we want now. And it's
Mm.
because of the distractions we have, right? Like there's so many things that are going to pull us away from God. Okay, like Satan doesn't come in the form of, oh look, I'm Satan, like follow me. It's not. That's not how he comes. Yeah, he's not
Yeah,
like that. He comes in the form that is very deceitful. Okay, very seductive. Okay, um,
yeah,
in those small little ways, he comes as an attractive option. Following God is not the most attractive option. Okay, it's not an easy road to follow. Um, but Satan is like, yeah, it's easy, bro. Like, it's the devil and angel analogy I always speak about, where it's like the angel saying, listen, like, this is going to take you away from God. You shouldn't be doing it. Okay. Then the devil's going to be like, oh, don't listen to it. Like that angel. Like, trust me, everyone's doing this. You're missing out on all the fun. If you don't do this, like, people are literally going to laugh at you. Everyone's going to say this, that, whatever. Um, and one thing I struggle with a lot was FOMO. Like FOMO was something
mm,
I struggle with so much this year. Okay, this year especially when I changed and I repented and I started following God and becoming a disciple of God. Like FOMO is something that really affected me in certain parts of my life because um I wasn't the person I used to be, and I'd see people out and I'd see people here and there and I'd see people doing this and doing that, and it would be so like, oh, like maybe I would be having fun if I did that. You know, like this is kind of boring. Do I really need to sit and read my Bible on a Friday night instead of going there? Like, like there's that thought
yeah,
in my head, right? But that's the narrow road. Like Matthew 7, verse 14 says, like, the narrow road leads to life. Only if you find it, it's difficult to find. And that was something that was like so hard for me to comprehend. But the more time you spend with God, the easier it becomes, and the more you want to spend that time with Him, and you don't want to waste it in the world. Um, but yeah, good.
yeah. No, I loved what you said about how, the devil comes, because people always picture the devil coming, with crimson red skin and the devilish horns, and he's speaking in this like cross voice, and he's like,
It's never
don't listen
obvious.
to
Yeah,
God. Like, dude, Lucifer was the most beautiful angel God ever created. Like, he was magnificent.
crazy.
Um, and like, I mean, obviously, the reason Lucifer ended up coming down to hell or going to hell was because he was so swallowed with pride. But that's how like beautiful he was. He was so like swell with pride. But yeah, the devil doesn't come dressed as like the devil. He comes dressed as everything you've ever wanted. In the Bible it says he
Sure,
transformed into an angel of light, right? And
it's good.
I think one thing I love that you also mentioned was how Satan comes as he's the master of lies, he's the father of lies. He comes with deceit. That's how he gets us. Take us back to the Garden of Eden. He came to Eve and he wasn't like, oh, I'm the devil, don't listen to God, follow me, and whatever. It was like,
Mm,
did God really say you shouldn't eat of the tree? And then Eve is
yeah.
like, yeah, he did say we shouldn't eat of the tree, otherwise we'll die. And then Satan was like, no, you're not gonna die. God just doesn't want you to be like him. Because if you eat of that
Mm,
fruit, you will surely be like him, right? And that's very
yeah,
convincing. That's a very convincing argument, right? Because it's like, well, we're humans, we've got pride, and we want to be like God. But the part
yeah,
he missed out, something Matt Chandler always says, is that we make crummy gods, right? Because when we decided to not follow what God said and become our own gods, we were like, all of a sudden, we're putting all this pressure on ourselves to reach a standard we'll never reach, right? To perform something we can never
yeah.
perform. But Satan leaves that part out, right? God is just like, for your good, do not eat of this tree. And then Satan comes and he's like, did God really say that? And then when you're like, yeah, he did. So he's like, God lied to you.
Sure.
You won't die. But then when we ate of that
Mm,
fruit, we did die. We died a spiritual death, right? And I think
sure.
that's the thing Satan loves to do. He loves to come come with lies, and then we get to like believing those lies. And there's something I was speaking about to you like just now, Darren, before we started recording, about how Satan tricks us into feeling like we actually enjoy the things we're doing. There's this
Yeah.
book. I know it's aimed at people with like porn addictions, but it's called Easy Peasy Method. And basically, the main premise behind that book is that like people who are stuck in addictions, their brain tricks them into believing they actually enjoy it, but like
Yeah.
they don't. And that's something I did like
Yeah.
with alcohol, for example, right? Like last year, I kind of tried alcohol a couple of times, and I'm like, bro, I don't like alcohol. Tastes like it tastes like crap. And knowing the research behind alcohol, it is poison to your body. There's literally nothing good about alcohol except if you enjoy it. And I don't enjoy it. So I was just like, bro, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, let me just stop. Let me stop right now while I don't enjoy it. Right. And what he was saying about like addictions is that for a lot of people who do have, like, say, an alcohol addiction, right? They didn't enjoy it at the start, but they kind of got themselves to like it. And then now all of a sudden, you feel like you enjoy this thing. And then once you get to a certain point, your brain is so addicted to it that like you need to have it in order to like relieve, that feeling. But
Sure.
it's not
Yeah.
taking part in this addiction to get to a higher level and experience a higher level of dopamine. It's because you've taken part of this addiction, your dopamine levels are like just low in general, and you need to take part of it just so you can release and get back to normal. And it's like your brain just gets so messed up like in that context, because well, you're getting tricked now. You're believing lies. You're making yourself believe lies, and that's
Mm.
what Satan does. He tricks us into believing we actually like the things that we do. But yeah, before I go
Yeah.
on, Darren, what you have to say about that?
Sure. So good, bro. Yeah, like what you're saying is so good. And one thing I thought about was the when the devil tempted Jesus using scripture,
Mm,
and we, he tempted him and he wanted to give him the world and say, oh, you can have this, you can have that. Um, you can be the king of this world, like that was what the devil is using. But that could also be distractions as well. Like people can come to you with
yeah,
scripture, and they can come to you with all this like godliness and all these Christianity kind of things, but it could be a
yeah,
distraction as well. That's something like we need to, like false prophets, okay, like teachers, that kind
yeah,
of stuff. Those are big
mm,
distractions as well. And you can be consuming content from content that you think is Christian and you think it's great, but a lot of it's just motivational talks, they self-development stuff. It's also taking away the time that you can spend with God. Okay, it's
yeah,
anything that's taking away your time from spending that time with God. Those are the things in your life, and it also goes back to idolization. We made 2 episodes on idolization, one specifically on idolization, and then one on sports and idolization, right? And it's anything that's going to take you away from spending that time with God. Okay, I'm not talking about work. Okay, work is just, you need it. You need to get an income. You need to support yourself. Okay, that's obviously something you need to do. School, same thing. University, same thing, right? I'm talking about the time after that and before that. Okay, how are
mm,
you spending that time? Okay, how are you actually aligning yourself with God? Okay, because the distractions are going to be there. They're going to keep coming. The world's going to get worse. Um, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And that's just
yeah,
what the Bible says. Okay, there's so many prophecies that say that. Um, and it's how you spend that time, right? And that was something that like just I thought about there. And also something I heard from Bryce Crawford, where he was saying that a lot of people can speak the word of God very well. They can make videos and they can say, oh, like, they speak about God and stuff, and they speak all these great things. But those are the same people who don't follow what they even say. They're not even practicing what they preach, but it's the way in which they act. Okay, that's why your actions always are way more powerful than your words. The fruits of your spirit, okay, the fruits that you
yeah,
exhibit. Um, that's very important, right? When it comes to like false prophets and stuff like that you distinguish that so you don't get distracted by the wrong people. Because honestly, there are a lot of preachers out there that can lead you astray. And I think that is just the way it is, because again, Matthew 7, like, narrow is the path that leads to life. And
mm,
you think that every pastor is going to lead you to heaven, but that's not the case. Okay, like their messages aren't aligned with God's desires and what He wants them to do. So it's very important to distinguish that. And the only way you can distinguish that is by reading your Bible and inviting the Holy Spirit in that reading. Okay, that you are guided by that. So that was something I heard there. And then yeah, going back to like easy peasy method, you talking about that, and yeah, like
Yeah.
that book was essential when I, quit my last addiction. Like that was an incredible book.
Yeah.
And it's always like the devil that it's that lie that he always says, like, you know what, listen, like Darian, you've had a hard day, um, you've had a long day, like you need that stress reliever. Okay, like you need to just release that tension, have that drink, have that drink with your friends, go out, have fun, like it's nothing, it's just one night, this, that, whatever, like
Yeah.
just go watch that video. You're not supposed to watch the video, right? And the devil's like, yo, go watch that video, just one last time. Okay. And JP always speaks about the lie of one last time. Okay. Those
Mm.
people that always say, like, oh, one last time I'm gonna watch porn. Okay, one last time I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get drunk. Just one last one. It's his birthday. We're gonna have the best time ever. Last time, and then I'm gonna go completely sober. It never ever works. Never.
Mm.
Okay, never in the history has that ever worked. Where someone said, I'm gonna sin one last time, and then why do you think that doesn't work? Okay, it's because your heart's not aligned with God's heart. Do you
Mm.
really think Jesus will say to you, like, yeah, okay, it's cool, you can sin one last time, I forgive you, it's okay, you can do the rest? No, like, God doesn't like that. He hates sin in general. He hates it. We should
Yeah.
hate sin. And there's going to be so many distractions, so many people, and you even probably know the people who are distracting you, or the things that you're watching, or the music you're listening to. All these things are distracting. And that was one thing, like, I always think about when it comes to like lust, and how it's just like it's a stress reliever, and it's like, oh yeah, like just release that stress. And then once it happens, it's like you feel shame and guilt immediately. There's that immediate
Mm.
shame and guilt. What did I just do? Why did I do this? Okay, that is a lie. Okay, Satan lies. That's his best quality. That's the best thing that he can do, is lie, is to manipulate. And one last thing that I heard was Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell from
Mhm.
2819 Church, and he's like blowing up. He's becoming like very viral on all these social media platforms because he's very like straightforward,
Mm.
to the point. And he said something where he said, like, the ways in which you get the best way to get close to God is to love him more and hate sin. Okay, you love God and you hate sin. You love God and you hate sin. And that's how you live your life. Okay, you should be hating it. And what Gideon said, like, the devil makes us think we enjoy it. Okay, we think we need
Mhm.
that release. We think we need to have that fun time with our friends. And then we wake up in the morning and we feel so fragile and we feel horrible and we waste the entire day. Okay, we think that we need that little bit. And instant gratification. Okay, it's like, it's literally like, it's that hit, it's that dopamine. You think you need it, and then when it happens, you literally feel worse than when you started off. That's how it always is, and science has proved that constantly, time and time again. But we keep falling into these same brackets, and it's because we don't love God. We don't love God as much, and we don't hate sin as much, and we're supposed
Yeah.
to be doing those things. But yeah, I just wanted to add that from what you were saying, bro. So good.
Um, yeah, no, I love what you were saying about the when you were quoting JP about what he said about the lie of one last time.
Mm,
I know this isn't the context, but I still found it like quite interesting in the Gospels. Jesus rebuked. So there was the one guy who came to him, and he was like, "What is it? What do you have to do to get into heaven?" Or something like that. And he questioned him. He's like, "Are you good? Have you kept the law your whole life?" And the guy's like, "Yes, I have." And then he's like, "Okay, cool. Give up your riches and follow me." And then the guy didn't want to. Right? That was one of the
mm,
things. But there was another one where Jesus calls these guys to follow him, but they're like, "No, okay, okay, we'll come. Can you just let us? Like, we just need to bury our dead." And then Jesus is like, "No, let the dead bury the dead, right? Like, come follow me now." He was rebuking them for the fact that like
mm,
Jesus is like, "Follow me," and they're like, "Okay, but let's just do this one thing quickly." That's not the context
sure.
of like in relation to this topic, but I just found it interesting what you're saying about the whole one last time thing, where it's like Jesus, like he calls us
So
to
good, bro. Yeah.
follow, like our heart should be fully with him. But another thing I love that you said was the distractions thing, right? Because I heard this quote somewhere, and I'm going to completely butcher it. I'm just going to paraphrase why I understood it. But he said that
Mm,
where the devil can't, well, I have it written here. where the devil can't destroy your faith, he distracts, right? And I think distractions something, we are riddled with
Sure.
distractions, right? Like, just think about, I mean, we can start with social media, honestly. Like, social media is just such a massive distraction. We've spoken about social media's impact in relation to, society and how it leads to idolization and lust, for example. Do you know, like, on TikTok, bro, you can search. I mean, there's jokes and stuff because, like, on TikTok, when you start, like, typing things, they've implemented this, like, search feature that relates to, like, the TikTok. So say it's a TikTok, yeah. So there's people who are like, bro, I searched for, like, literally anything. Like, you can literally type literally anything in the thing, like the actual words literally anything, and then it's just going to be like lustful content. And people are, they're noticing it, right? Like, you can search anything, bro. You can search a Cole Palmer video, bro, and you'll see like 4 videos, and then after that it's just lustful content.
Yeah.
It's in your face, right? But, like, yeah, it's just how social media distracts. Social media distracts in that manner. Politics, social media it's right heavily on politics as well. The amount of time people spend arguing with people online that they're never going to meet, but yet they get so riled up, like they give up so much of their energy to it. It's insane, like it really is. And when you understand how social media works, it just makes it like more sinister, because the way like a TikTok works, and I'm sure all the other social media apps have adopted this as well, is that it works like a slot machine, right? So like when you open TikTok, you're not just going to get 7 out of 7 good videos, right? You're going to get like 2 good videos, and then you're going to get 1 bad one, and then you get 1 average one, and then you get like 3 bad videos, and then you get a good one, because that's how it works. That's how they keep you addicted, because it's like, what am I going to get next? I don't know if I'm going to get a good video next or not. Because if you got good videos, you kind of just get your fill, and then you be like, okay, cool, I'm leaving. But like, because it's like done that way, I just find that so sinister. But also another thing is that they ride off of like negativity a lot. In fact, not even negativity, anger. Like, anger is you would think, okay, if I'm creating a social media app and I want people to stay on it, I'm gonna make it like feel good and stuff because I want people to come back. But honestly, it's not like the goodness of the feeling that keeps you on the social media apps. It's the intensity, and the most intense feeling we have is anger. That's why you get a lot of political content online, or just people arguing in general, right? It's that intensity. So they ride off of the things that make you like go crazy. I remember seeing, I was fuming when I saw this, because this was when I was finding out this kind of thing. On Instagram, they had this feature. I don't know if they still have it. But like when you're scrolling on like Instagram Reels, right? They will show you like a comment, right? They'll show you a comment. Like, first of all, you normally have to go into the comment section, right, to go and see like what people are saying about things. But now the comment just pops up. Like, there'll be like one comment kind of just popping up at the bottom, right? But what I found out just by looking at it, they don't put the top comment on there. They put the comment that's got the most replies to it. So like the most controversial comment, they'll put it there. I'm like, bruh.
That's crazy, yo.
I guess it leads me back to what Paul was saying in Ephesians about how we don't battle against flesh and blood. We battle against like powers and principalities. Because when you look at something like that, that's not some random person who's come up with that idea. They've got really smart engineers that they've got on really like lucrative contracts. They're earning like millions of dollars a year, right? And the sole purpose of their job is to make sure they keep you on that app. Like that's what you're fighting against.
Crazy.
Like, it's a massive machine. Like, it's powers and principalities. And Satan loves to distract us in that way. Obviously, yeah, social media is one way he distracts us. I spoke about like politics, for example, but yeah, even like just the mind-numbing content, you spend hours. Dude, the amount of times I've gone onto TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, YouTube is dangerous, because you go on there, you're like, I'm watching long content, then you see one short, and then you get the amount of times you go on there and you're like scrolling for like 2 hours, like and you look back and you're like, I remember there was this one time I was watching this video. It was by this guy called Iman Ghazi. I don't watch him anymore, but like he was, in that like self-improvement content kind of thing. And he was saying, like, tell me the last 3 videos you watched on TikTok before you clicked off. And I was like, wow. Like, you can't even name 3 videos you watched on TikTok. The last 3 you watched, but like you're scrolling on there for hours. Like, how much time is being wasted? And then there's also, there's obviously, I spoke about like arguments online that like they don't matter and stuff. But also like even within church, for example, and it's just a natural inclination we have as humans. But I know Paul made an emphasis of this in the book of Corinthians, right? Because he was writing to the church of Corinth. And he was like, I don't know if he was saying I want or if he was saying God wants, but either way, the concept, he was saying that like we just want the church to be united, right? Because there was a lot of like factionism. I think in the Church of Corinth of like, oh, we're splitting over like these ideas and stuff. And I'm seeing it now. The more I'm getting into like theology and stuff, I see it a lot in like it's just different like points of view. Now, obviously, there's things like Catholicism, which is like that's so unbiblical. Like I would split over that because that's Catholics, Protestants. It's like Catholics, bro. Like they've added so much stuff to the Bible. Like that's understandable, right? Or like splitting with like Muslims, for example, or Jews, right? Because that's not the doctrine. Like that's a salvation issue, right? Of like you're not going to get saved, so that's something to split over. But like within the church, like arguments about like secondary issues, right? So like arguments about let's say like women in ministry, for example, like what certain verses say. Like just there's so many things people don't need to be splitting over, but you'll split over. Last week, I made a comment about like Calvinism, for example. Like I wanted to make it clear, like Calvinism it's fine. Like for the most part, it's fine. Like it's not something to split over. Like I said, I have a friend who's like a 5-point Calvinist, which is like you agree with like all the main points of Calvinism. But like we get along just fine, right? But we will have discussions and stuff. But that's something people like get split over. Like people like use friendships over, and it's like, Paul is saying in Corinthians, we just want like the church to be united, God's people to be one, right? But we split over these things, and Satan really he distracts us through like those kinds of things. But before I go on, I don't know what you want to say, Darian.
Sheesh. Yeah, what you were saying about social media is crazy. And yeah, like they do it that's their marketing tactic. Like that's how they get the apps out. It's just the way they do that. And I know the TikTok one, especially where you're literally searching for something. And then I remember I searched for like even Christian content because I get a lot of my knowledge from different Christian content creators and stuff. And there's a topic I think I was searching for. And there was just like a whole lot of lustful videos. Like they were just popping up. And it's so sad that that's that's their marketing strategy and that's their tactic. And it makes you think like kids, who aren't even, of age, like they seeing that stuff and then they get addicted to it. They just see this video and they're like, oh, what's this? And then keeps going and it just keeps going. And that's how it gets you, right? It gets you in that way. And that is probably, I think, the biggest issue we have with social media. Hence why like there's this whole like detox movement for social media. And I just have to I literally just delete it. Like I delete Instagram when I'm not using it. I delete TikTok when I'm not using it because I know that if I even see it there, I'm gonna go on. And like app limits as well. Like you try to do that and it's like, okay, but the app limits for Apple is just like it's ridiculous. You just say, okay, I want to go for 15 minutes. You type in your little password and then you back on. Like it's just it doesn't help. Like it just doesn't work. And yeah, like the Bible very clear on that. Ephesians 5 speaks about it. Like, don't waste your time in these evil days. Okay, the days are evil. Okay, you're living in a time where God's going to get shut down way more. Okay, the name of Jesus is going to be shut down way more. You're living in these evil days, and the last thing you want to do is waste time. The last thing you want to do is spend that time getting distracted and getting brainwashed into this wave of Antichrist-like stuff. Okay, you don't want to be in there. You don't want to. Okay, it's demonic. Okay, a lot of this stuff is demonic. Okay, lust. Okay, lust and porn is demonic. Okay, it's something that we think it's just a sin. It's a really bad sin. It's actually it's from the devil. Okay, the word porn comes from, I think it's a place in the Bible called porneia. I think it is. Yeah, not sure. Yeah. It was a message I heard a while ago, but think about that. Okay, they named this industry after this lustful place in the Bible. Okay, it's demonic, it's satanic, and we think it's just a bad sin, right? But it's actually something that's taking us away from God, and it's drawing us towards Satan. When you're drawn away from God, you're drawn towards Satan. Okay, you're drawn towards the will of him and what he wants you to do. And with distractions and so on, Satan's not gonna attack you, and he's not gonna come for you if you're not in the will of God. Like if you're not someone who's looking to better your walk with God and further your walk with God, he's not gonna attack you and be give you all these distractions and make you struggle with sin. He's not gonna do that because you've already completed your purpose according to him. You're away from God. That's his purpose. His purpose and goal is to take you away from God's will. And that's something that, a lot of us, we're just comfortable with. We're comfortable with the lives we live. We're comfortable with living this life. And then eventually you get to a point in your life where you say, okay, listen, I need something more than this. And I think I heard Tom Brady say this, where he said that, he's probably the most decorated footballer, American footballer of all time. I think he's like a billionaire or something. I don't know. He married like one of the prettiest women ever. Okay. But then he got divorced, right? He got divorced,
Mm.
um, all these things. And he said in an interview, like, I feel like something's missing. Okay. Now, some people logically, they would look at that and they'll be like, what on earth? Like, Tom Brady, you literally have everything I could possibly
Yeah.
want in my life. Every single thing. And you think there's something missing. Like, what is wrong with you? It's like, are you okay in your head? Like, what is going on? Why it's okay? Why is that? It's because you're thinking about it from a logical perspective. We're not
Yeah.
thinking about it from the supernatural perspective where, you know, God is our everything. Okay.
Mm.
And we had this discussion about sports and idolization with Jude Bellingham specifically, where we said, like, I think you used the example of Jude, and you said how, he's probably like, he's one of the most attractive footballers out there. He can get any goal he wants. He has the best of everything. He's playing for the best football team in the world. All these things, right? And we
Yeah.
mentioned the point that God loves Jude the same way he loves us. Okay. He
Mm.
doesn't care about those achievements. He doesn't care about what he's doing. He cares about the heart. And that's why Proverbs says, Solomon tells us in Proverbs, he says that you need to guard your heart, okay, for it determines the course of your life, okay?
Mm.
And the distractions are going to come very fast, okay? They're going to come very quick. And we spoke about this where, series and music was such a big one. We made like 3 episodes, I think, on music. And
Yeah.
those distractions are they're just gonna get worse and worse. And spending time with God, like it's the option that you look at, and it's the most boring option. And it's the
Mm.
most like, oh, like, do I really have to read my Bible? Darren, like, can I not just watch a podcast? Can I not just watch your podcast? Can I not just watch some sermon that I find? It's like, no, okay, the Bible is the root of everything. That is where you establish that relationship with God. That is where you learn
Mm.
the knowledge for yourself, okay, so that you don't get caught up in false prophets and all these things. And that was something that I really, I struggle with as well. And then in this book that I read, Dopamine Nation, you know,
Yeah.
the this doctor basically said something where she said that, people find boring as such a negative thing. Um, People see it as a negative thing, right? And this takes us back to simple and quiet life. And there was
Yeah.
this one patient that she had. Okay, I think she's a clinical, not a clinical psychologist, neurologist or something. Yeah, one of those things.
Mm.
And she had this one patient, and she was this like high school girl. She was a girl in high school, and this girl would basically, she was very rebellious. She always had earphones in every single time. She was very like, didn't really like to listen to anyone, that kind of thing. And the doctor said to her, one day, why don't you just walk to school without music? Okay? Don't
Yeah.
listen to music. Just walk to school without music. And she said, oh, but that's boring. Like, I need my music to keep me going. I need my music to actually get me through this walk to school, right? And she
Yeah.
tried it. She said, just do it for 1 week, okay? Just do it for 1 week. And she did it. And the doctor was like, how did you feel? And she said, it was actually like really nice, And then the doctor said, why? And she said, because I actually noticed the trees around me. I actually
Mm.
noticed that, the birds were singing. And I noticed that there was fresh air and I was breathing and I was just looking at the scenery and I was looking around. Right. And it's not a Christian book. Okay. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that, boredom can produce beauty. Okay. When you're
Yes.
bored, right, God can speak to you in those moments. Okay. You can either choose to give your boredom to God, or you can give your boredom to instant gratification, aka Satan, right? And it always leaves you feeling short. It always leaves you feeling short every single time you get into sin. Okay. Instant gratification always leads to permanent dissatisfaction. Always.
Mm. I
Every
don't know, teacher.
single time. Yeah. Every single time. Okay. And that's something that Satan will constantly do with us, right? He'll just say, like, the lies will come in, all of that. And it's kind of like a loop. Okay. Another like book that I read back in the day was The Habit Loop, where there's always like a cue. Okay, there's always like something that there's a cue that starts. Okay, then the routine starts, then there's a reward, and then it just keeps going. It just keeps going and it just keeps going. And I remember that author used the analogy of like that and then a porn addiction, right? So running and porn addiction. And he said like porn addiction always starts, the cue always starts when you just kind of like you see a trigger. Okay, there's like this trigger that just like, prompts you, and then you think there's a reward, and that reward is feeling good, right? So the routine happens, okay, like masturbation, whatever, and then after that it's like the reward you get is like this relief, this amazing feeling, but it's short-lived, and then you need that cue again, and then you need that routine, and then you need that reward, and then it's short-lived. And you see how an addiction starts. Okay, that's how addictions literally start, right? And then you use running, and then you said running is like, okay, cool, you wake up in the morning, and then your trigger would be that you have your running shoes out already. So you see your running shoes, okay, cool, I'll put them on. Okay, your routine, yes, it's a hard routine, but the reward is that you kind of you're working off calories that you need to work off, and you're going to feel so good for the rest of your day. And that reward stays for a very long time, okay? And it's a good routine that you're building. So, yeah, I think that like we get stuck in these things because, the focus isn't God, okay? The focus isn't the unseen, which is God, okay? And faith is also another aspect we can talk about with this. But before I go on, yeah, get take over.
So many diamonds in there, bro. That was so good.
Thanks,
I don't even know where to start because you spoke about so much like nice stuff, but I'm just okay. I'll do the intimacy thing afterwards. I want to touch on the thing you said about how people say that people think boring is bad. I always think of like I remember seeing this one TikTok about some girl bragging about how I can go through everything I'm going in life, but at least I know I'll never be the vanilla wife. And in my head, I'm like, bro, I love the vanilla wife, bro. Give me a vanilla wife. Like that life sounds so much better. But yeah, no, the boring, and I think to the thing you're saying about the girl who was, we just stopped listening to music and just went out and just saw the beauty. You said something about how boredom creates beauty. I would say that like distractions stop us from seeing the beauty that's already there, and boredom just allows us to actually just appreciate it, right? Because it's there, but we just don't appreciate it. And I was just thinking of like how many people, and it's bad for our generation and going forward, but like how long we're going to spend staring at our phones, right? And I forgot the numbers. I remember Matt Chandler was saying it in a sermon, but he was saying something like, if you spend like 3 hours on your phone every day, which is like the average or whatever it is, right? And he kind of just added it up and he was like, bro, you're going to spend this many amount of years in your life staring down at your phone. And then I'm taken back again to what Mankazi had said about the whole TikToks. Like, tell me the last 3 TikToks you watched, right? If we were to put a tally together of how many hours we spend on our phones, how many hours, you could even do a nice little split, how many hours you spend on YouTube, how many hours you spend on TikTok, how many hours you spend on Netflix, like, bro, how much do you remember? I mean, first of all, I know I'd be horrified just looking at that, at those hours, right? The amount of hours I've wasted doing that, right? And then and back to what we were saying, it doesn't even feel good. Like it doesn't even feel good. You don't even enjoy it. You don't enjoy like scrolling on TikTok because again, it's like a slot machine. You're just looking for like that next hit, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Now you want another one and another one. Like you don't feel good on it afterwards. You don't feel good after you've been on it. It's just a waste of time. But anyways, there was also you were saying something. I forgot exactly what it was, but I remember Matt Chandler was speaking about how like he did this thing where, he's a pastor and he's like always busy and stuff. And he was like, okay, we want to take like a sabbatical. And he went like with this, or it wasn't a sabbatical, but like go on holiday basically. And he's like, I'll go with like my wife and my friends and everything. And it's like, he came back and was like, I don't feel rested, right? Because doing nothing doesn't mean like being rested. Like being rested means resting means taking time away from all the distractions you're having. But if you're going on your holiday and again, it's just all these flashing lights again and you're doing that kind of thing, like you're not going to be rested, right? Good. And again, I'll take it further and say, when you have a weekend and stuff and you spend time, say you spend your whole day at home, you're like, okay, cool, you didn't go out or anything, so you must be rested. But like you spend your whole day, busy scrolling on TikTok or whatever it is, guaranteed you're gonna wake up the next day still feeling tired. Like you're never gonna feel that rest, because
Sure.
the rest God was talking about isn't just not doing anything, right? It's spending time connected to God, like separate from everything else. Like I think that's important as well. But to also touch on something you spoke about, just as a general theme, there was the whole aspect of like being intentional. And I'm reminded of what you said, quoting JP about how he said, "There's no intimacy without intentionality." And I think
Craig Rochelle.
Craig Rochelle. Sorry.
Yeah, Craig Rochelle.
Anything that comes out of your mouth, bro, just like JP. Has to be JP.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the whole idea of being intentional is something we've lost as a society, right? And I think it's something a lot of us realize as you become adults, like just in the concept of making friends. When you're at school and stuff, your friends are there. Like your pool of making friends is there. Even if you're thinking of like the dating scene, right? Say you go to like a co-ed school, whatever it is, if you're lucky enough, like your dating pool is there. But once you leave that and you become an adult, you notice that some things as simple as friendships. And I know it's not something you'd say is ideal, but like I have to schedule, like I have to go like reach out to friends of mine and be like, okay, we need to schedule like chat like once a month or whatever. So I'm doing it with Jaden because Mr. Vessels.
Yes.
Yeah, like we're like, dude, we have such good conversations whenever we decide to catch up. Like I remember we finished university obviously in 2019. 2020, we went the whole of 2020 we didn't speak, and then the start of 2021 we kind of just started speaking. And I was like, damn, like we have nice conversations, and then we didn't speak for like a year again, and then we spoke like towards the end of 2021, whatever it was. And this year I kind of just reached out to him and we started speaking a bit more, and I was like, let's actually like we should speak more, right? But now we have to be intentional. Now you actually have to like schedule in, and obviously you want to have, we were kind of speaking earlier on about how it would have been nice, if you moved to Joburg and stuff, because we'd be able to like do stuff more often. But like when you're living in different cities, you have to be intentional. You have to be like, okay, we're going to schedule like and have like calls this often or whatever it is, right? But like, again, that's where you have to take that step and be like, okay, I want to have a close relationship with this person. I have to be more intentional about it. I have to be intentional about spending time with them. And the same concept applies with God, right? You need to be intentional about how you spend time with God. And Satan knows that, which is why he chucks in distractions. Because now when you're distracted, it's very difficult for you to build that intimacy. But yeah, I think also another thing you kind of you spoke about it about Tom Brady, about how and Jude Bellingham as well, about how they have everything, right? But I think that's something that Solomon touched on in the well, he didn't touch on it. He wrote a whole book on it in Ecclesiastes, right? Where Solomon he got given everything. I think we've run over the story so many times, right? But like he got given everything. And he first started with like, well, what are you gonna do? You're like a young man. I don't think he was like that young, but you're a man and you've got all the money in the world. You got like so much power and everything. What are you gonna do, right? He was like, I'm gonna just throw like debaucherous parties, and that was his thing. He did that for a long time, and then he was like, it's not giving me the same kick, that I wanted. I think Matt Chandler, when he was speaking about it, he said something like, you'd kill like 40 oxen at one like party, because it's like, bro, I've got all this money, like
Crazy.
let's just go crazy, right? Let's go hard, like as hard as we can with partying. And then he was like, nah, that's not working for me. And then he was like, let me go to a life of leisure, right? I don't know what you did next, but yeah, a life of leisure where let me just chill, let me just do nothing, let me just relax and do nothing all day. And he was like, nah, this is not really it either. And then he threw himself into like business. He built the temple. He was focused on like building all these like incredible vineyards and everything and making as much money as possible. And in the end, he was like, nah, not everything is vapor. Like it's there constantly. He's like, I found out everything is meaningless, right? But I think the more direct translation from I don't know if it was original Greek or Hebrew or whatever, but it's vapor. Vapor was the word he used like a lot more often. I think it's a more accurate translation than meaningless. But basically, like it's something you feel like I can get it, but then it's not enough, right? And in the end, his conclusion was that God is enough. But that's something leading back to what we're saying about how Satan lies to us, right? Satan, he distracts us again with this idea of like, look at all these flashy things, right? I was just speaking about how Samson is right now. Like right now as I'm filming, I'm busy clipping cars making noise and stuff. But you go into Samson and you're seeing all these flashy lights, right? You're seeing all these flashy cars. You know, you go into a restaurant, you see
Mm.
all these people dressed up. You know, you're seeing people, who are more handsome than you. You know, you see pretty people, and you're seeing like people who are more dressed up than you. You're like, oh damn, that's a nice outfit. I'd love an outfit like that. You know, you're getting distracted by all these things, and that's another thing Satan does. You know, he's throwing it in there to destroy that intentionality you have in your life. Um, he's putting these things in front of you with lies, by the way, saying if you get this, you'll be fulfilled, right? If you could just be a little bit more handsome, you'd be fulfilled. You know,
Sure.
if you could get a prettier girl, if you get more girls, you'd be you'd be happier. You know, if you get more money, you'd be happier, right? And I said, in a city like Santon, it's everywhere. You know, you go in, you're gonna see someone. It's guaranteed you're gonna see someone that's better looking than you. You're gonna see someone that's richer than you, right? You're gonna see someone that's taller than you. You're gonna see someone that has more than what you already have. And
Mm.
taking back to a teaching I learned this week by from Matt Chandler, where he was saying that if you guys haven't learned already, like, dude, I love Matt Chandler. He's awesome.
We can
But
tell. We can tell.
he was saying something. So he set up the scene like this. You know, he was like, everyone in this room has had some kind of success. A lot of people in here, some kind of significant success in a area of their life or in an area of their life, right? And the lie that Satan comes and tells you is that if you could have more of what you already have, you'd be happier, you'd be fulfilled. And it's just ridiculous. Like it really is. Like you already have it,
Sure.
right? And I'm also reminded again of something I learned a while back where it was like, you've achieved something you wanted before in your life. Like you said, I want this thing. When I get this thing, I'll be happy. And you got it. Like there are things you wanted in the past and you've got them and
Mm.
you've kind of just forgotten about them, right? Like I can give you an example. Like last year, for example, I'm studying like honors, and I'm like, dude, I'm so over studying. I just want to pass so I can, move on and like move on in my life and start like a job and stuff, and then I'll be happy. I'll be able to do all this, and that. And I have, it's been nice and stuff. But like the moment that kind of thing happens, you rejoice for a bit, but then next it's like, oh, once I have this, or once I have this, then I'll be happy. But I think to what Solomon is saying, to what Tom Brady was saying, to what a lot of people say, you you're gonna get what you want. You've already gotten what you had before, but one day you're gonna get everything you've ever wanted, and you're gonna realize it's not enough, and that is gonna be a gut punch. Because you can just see the tone that Solomon had in Ecclesiastes. Like you can imagine, bro, you have everything, and I hate this quote. People are like, they say money doesn't make you happy, but I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini. I'm like, no, you wouldn't, because when you cry, you don't have what you want. At least you have that hope that like, oh, when I get this, then I'll be
Sure.
happy. But when you already have what you want and you're crying in that Lamborghini, where do you have to look for hope? Now, obviously, as Christians,
Mm.
we know the answer to that it's God, right? But like that's the prevailing idea. You can have everything and you still not be happy because, as Solomon says, it's vapor. But yeah,
Oh, crazy, crazy. Um, yeah, bro. Honestly, speaking about such good things there, and there's a few things I picked up what you said about um like distractions and so on, and one thing I think is like people lack peace when
yeah,
they're distracted. I think peace is like such a big one. Um, and the peace of God transcends all understanding when we pray in faith that God can take our worries away and um the things we that consume our thoughts and our minds, right? Like it's praying about those things that gives us the peace. And I think, you know, there's something I mentioned in my Connect group yesterday, what I always said, like, and this is a common thing we've heard before, but it applies to this so well. It's like we only pray when things are good or we pray when things are bad. We never pray in all kinds of conditions or situations. And that's so like it's so true because people who get like everything, like let's just say materialistic things, like they have everything they could possibly want, they don't see the reason to pray because things aren't bad in their life according to them. Um,
yeah,
and then when things get bad, it's like it's a whole different scenario. But yeah, like putting God first, it's not seen as an attractive option because of the amount of distractions we have. And you know, the world says like, sorry, the Bible says, You store up your treasures on earth and they'll rust. Okay, they'll just get destroyed, all that kind of stuff. You leave this earth with nothing but your soul. Okay, like you can
Yeah.
literally build this legacy, you can build whatever you want. Solomon, he did crazy things, but he realized at the end that God's enough and that that's all that mattered to him, and that he was going to leave without those things. Um, it's materialistic for a reason. Okay, it's created, it's in the world for a reason. It stays here. That's where it belongs, right? Our temporary residence is earth. Okay, we're here for a limited amount of time, and then eternal life's the goal. Okay, we spend our whole eternity with Jesus, a whole eternity with God, a whole eternity with the Holy Spirit. And those people, like, I mean, it reminded me, everything you were just saying now reminded me so much about, being in Dubai. And
Mm.
I was there for 4 days, this year in June. And I've, I've never seen that amounts of money, like, off the things people were wearing, the cars, the places, right? The
Yeah.
houses, like it's crazy, seeing those things. And then sometimes, like, and I was questioning myself, okay, like I had doubts. I was like, yo, like, look at like these people, look at their lives they're living. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong in my life? What could I be in that position? Like, why am I wasting my time? And I could be here or there, this and that. And I remember, like, I saw this one guy's outfit, like, his outfit was probably worth 1 million rand. Clothes. I'm not talking about like his watch and his clothing and stuff. Like shoes.
Wow.
Like he was just like dripped out in LV. Like LV everything. Um
You're.
and I couldn't I literally stared at him and I was just like, there's no ways. And this guy was probably like could have been my age, younger, right?
Mm.
And there's moments where you can have comparison. Okay? Like you compare yourself to these people and it's like you just look around you, like that's what Dubai is about. It's literally all about money. It's all about materialism, materialistic things. Um, and yeah, like you see all these things, and it's like that's what people live for. And I hear people a lot, like they say things like, "Oh yeah, like I'm gonna earn my money overseas, and then when I'm done there, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna spend it, and I'm gonna live my lavish life." It's like you're just chasing the wrong things, okay? Like you're
Mm.
just chasing the wrong things. Yes, you might have a nice job opportunity, this and that, but this is something I heard from someone who told me this. Um, she said that the grass isn't green on the other side; it's greener where you water it. And
Mm.
that was like I was like, when she told me that, I was like, oh, I had to hold for a bit. Okay, I had to grab my seats because
Yeah.
that's insane, right? Like we always think
Mm.
that the grass is greener on the other side. We always think that Australia, yes, I'm gonna immigrate to Australia. I'm gonna leave this country. I hate the load shedding. I hate the fact that we don't get water often. Okay, like it's annoying. I'm going to Australia. Okay, I'm going to Dubai. Dubai, I'm gonna earn 5 times my salary. I'm going there. Okay,
Yeah.
you end up going there, and then God teaches you a lesson. Okay, you end up going there, and you realize that you know God is the goal. Okay, like you're gonna earn more money. Yes, you're gonna live in a better place, but there's gonna be something that's missing. Like you know, there's a reason why Tom Brady felt that. There's a reason why Dan Bilzerian felt that. There's a reason why the richest man in the world, who ever lived in this world, felt that. Solomon. They
Yeah.
all have the same thing in common. I remember my one of my best friends messaged me. He said he was a huge One Direction fan, okay, and Liam Payne committed suicide, okay, jumped off his balcony, and
Yeah.
Liam, yeah, Liam Payne committed, yeah, okay, committed suicide, all of that, right? And my friend said to me, he said, I don't understand. Like I literally don't understand. He had such a pretty girlfriend, okay, which doesn't mean anything, by the way.
Yeah.
He had all the money in the world, right? He earned all his money from One Direction, all these things, right? He was rich, he was famous, he was good looking, okay, all these things. And I said to him, he had everything he thought he needed, but he didn't have the one thing. He had everything he could possibly want, but he never had the
Mm.
one thing he needed. That's it, right?
Preach. Preach the reason.
Right? And that is God. At the end of the day, it's God. And it's faith. It's true faith. You are saved by grace through your faith. It's not of your own doing. It's of the gifts of God that's given to you. And I told him that, and he was like, yeah, that's so true. And, comparison is the thief of joy, and social media makes it so easy for us to compare ourselves to other people. Okay. And my mom used to always say this to me. She always used to say, like, I remember there was when it came to sports, and I'd always complain because like sometimes I wouldn't make the team I wanted to make, and I'd say like, no, I'm so much better than this player, or like, oh, this person took my place and this and that, and I'd complain to her all the time. And she'd always say to me, she'd always say, there's always someone better than you, always in your life.
Yeah.
Okay, there's always going to be someone better than you. Okay, we thought that for a stage we thought that like you know Ronaldo was going to be one of the best players ever. Okay, he has that
Yeah.
prospect in Sporting Lisbon, then he was going to United. Then Messi
Mhm.
comes along. Okay, 2 years younger than him, and
Mhm.
then it's like, whoa, okay, like this is crazy now, um, like
Getting
that's what we
controversial,
thought, right?
Barry.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just saying, right? Like, I'm just stating facts here.
Yeah, yeah.
And you look at like things like that, right? You think you see like Vinicius Junior like doing crazy stuff in 2022, winning a Champions League, all these kind of things. One of the best wingers in the world. Yamin Lamal comes out of nowhere, right?
Mhm.
17-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid scoring in the Euros, doing crazy things. There's always
Yeah.
someone better. Like there's always gonna be. We live in a world where things are just gonna get better and progress, right? Like people, things, abilities. Okay, someone who has an IQ that's this high, someone's gonna be way smarter than them. Okay, there's always gonna be someone who's smarter than you, prettier than you, better looking than you, um, has more money than you. All these things. Okay, and if you aspire to be at the top of that list for whatever, like you're missing out on the whole point of the gospel, which is to love others the way that God has loved you. Okay,
Yeah.
obeying those commandments, it starts there. And you know, we can talk about celebrities for so long, right? But that was something I wanted to mention was the peace aspect, and then also something you mentioned about how we always just kind of doing things. We always just continuously just have to do things, right? And it brings me to
Yeah.
a sermon I listened to about JP where he said that our whole lives are performance based, where even when you're a toddler, right, like your parents told you, oh, okay, like put your toys away and I'll give you like a sucker. Okay, like once you do that, like I'll reward you with something. And then when you're in school, it's like you do well, you get a merit award. And then when you do well in high school, you have to do well to get into a good university, to get into your degree. Okay. And then once you do well in your degree, you need to do well so that you can get that job. It's like we have to do something to get it. Okay. Like our whole lives, it's always just something that just keeps going. And when it comes to God, it's like God just wants you to surrender to Him and to just follow Him in that aspect. Right. Those were one of the cars there in Santon, I can hear. Um
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, like my point is that like to avoid a lot of these things, distractions and comparing yourself to other people, the solution is gratitude. The solution is thanking God for the things that you have and He's blessed you with. Okay? You have life. Okay? This is something someone yesterday in my Connect group said this. They said, the fact that we wake up is insane because literally, firstly, we have life. And then secondly, God's told us, like, I'm not done with you. Like, you have so much more to do in your life. You have so much purpose. And I have this amazing plan for you. Like, that is a blessing in itself. Okay? Be grateful that you have life. Okay? Be grateful that you have a family, that you are still living, you're still breathing. You get the opportunity to not waste your time in these evil days. And when you start thanking God more, you start to realize that you don't need much. You thank God more, you realize you need less. And you need Him more. Okay? Thank God more, you realize you need less. Remember that. Um, but yeah, I think like that's and how we can do that is just starting our prayers off in a way of gratitude, and we spoke about that in how to pray that episode. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, that was some good stuff. I like when you were using, the footballers as examples. Like there's always someone better than you. There's always someone better than you. Like
Mm,
Ronaldo, for example. I always make the joke. Obviously, Messi's better and stuff. I always make the joke that like Ronaldo's
yeah.
like his only problem is literally Messi because he's done like so incredible, right? But again, you look at someone like
Mm,
Ronaldo and you're like, I mean, let's lay it out. Handsome, like very handsome, very rich. He's tall, very successful, very respected. He's got. I mean, he's not married to his girlfriend, but that's a different thing. But he's got a family. He's got so many kids, right? Like he's got his son looks like, he wants to follow in his footsteps as well, which is a big thing, for like a man, just to have a son who wants to be like you. Like he's got
Mm,
what looks like everything, right? Like in the world, like what looks like everything.
yeah,
Obviously, if you don't have God, none of that matters, right? A relationship with God, like
sure.
supersedes all of that. Right? But you look at someone like Ronaldo. I remember, like, I love laughing at him, bro. Like when Messi won the Ballon d'Or in, like, I think 2019. No, I don't think he said anything. But in 2021, when Messi won that Ballon d'Or after they won the Copa America, and it was like Messi's sixth Ballon d'Or to put him ahead of Ronaldo. I remember he was whining. He was whining on the internet. Like there were things of like him whining on the internet. Just
Yeah.
like you could tell, like he's very competitive and eats him up inside that Messi's better than him, right? Then when Messi won again the Ballon d'Or last year, which is very controversial, but again, you know, Ronaldo was not happy. Again, just things like that. Like you look at someone like that and you're like, bro, you've got everything. Like you're basically top of the pyramid, bro. Like if you're looking at
Sure.
guys, like if you're comparing men around the world in terms of like the things that this world says, makes you like a successful man or like an important man, like Ronaldo is right up there, right? But again, there's just this whole thing of like you get there and you just realize like it's just not enough, right? And I think another example I love to use is like the money aspect, right? There's always, dude, there's always someone that's got more money than you, always, right? And you look at the people that get really rich, you ask yourself like, bro, look at like Elon Musk or all the Jeff Bezos or whatever. It's like you guys are filthy rich. If I had like $50 million, bro, I'm like, dude, I am chilling, bro. I can get like three really nice family homes. I don't ever have to work again. Like family and the next generation and the generation after that is sorted. I can just hang out with my friends and like just chill. But like, I mean, first of all, because we have that kind of mentality, that's why you don't get to like that level. Because the people who get to that level
Sure.
just have crazy mentalities. But what
So
happens,
true.
right, is that they get so much money, right? They get to a point where it's like, okay, like money isn't really doing it anymore. And one interesting thing I've heard about these kinds of people is that money isn't it's not the thing. Like money is just a way of keeping score, but it's not really like what they're chasing anymore. Once you get to a certain level, right, it's no longer about money, it's about power. It's about like pure power. How much power can I get? That's why you get a lot of these people, like you hear like Bill Gates and all of them busy funding like elections, right? Because they want to put people in power. You hear them pushing all these like all these things to try and like control people in terms of like climate change and all that crap, right? But like
Yeah.
people like now they're chasing power and control over people. It's like they literally want to be God, right? Like you get to a point where it's like I want to have as much I want to have this level of
Sure.
control, and
It's a really good point. Sure.
it's like how it's so pervasive. Like it's so pervasive, like the way just the way their minds work. Yeah, it's just wild. But I think that's just I love what you were saying about like, how there's always someone who's got more than you. So going back to like the Ronaldo kind of thing, or you look at like Lamine Yamal, right, where it's like these people who like they've got everything, but again you get there and you're like it's just not enough. So even if you do manage, even if you're blessed with the talent that like a Lamine Yamal has or like Messi had or whatever, right? You still get to that point where it's like I've got everything, but like now what, right? Because now all of a sudden
Sure.
you're not getting that thing you were looking for, right? But I think also another thing, going back to how Satan feeds us lies, right? It's like the whole idea of pride. And
Yeah.
we've spoken before about how music pushes this idea of like, oh, like people bragging about how many things they got, like Drake songs, for example. They're very like just rap songs in general, but like Drake, for example, that one thing that's very alluring about like his music is how he brags about the lifestyle he's living, right? He's busy bragging about, how many like Louis V bags he's buying, or how I'm trying to think of like a lyric off the top of my head, but like, oh, like, one of the things is like, oh, we get into a club and we don't need to get searched and stuff because we just, like, I'm just, we're Drake. I'm Drake. I've got this level of power. I get to do all these cool things, I get on a plane and there's already these things set up, whatever, like just stupid stuff like that. And it's like, it makes you feel like, ooh, that's really nice. Like, I want to have that, right? And going back to Satan's lies about how that thing of like feeling if I have more than you, and this is what like rap is mainly centered around, and just our whole lives in general, actually, on social media, is that if I have more than you, if I'm more handsome than you, that makes me feel good. If I'm the one guy getting that all the girls like, if I'm like Jude Bellingham, all the girls like me, but they more than everyone else, then I'm gonna feel really
Yeah.
good, right? Or if I have more, like, have you heard about like the money thing, for example, right? Apparently, if you have, they've done surveys, right? Like, would you rather, let's say, let's use an amount, would you rather be making $1 million a year but everyone else around you is making $1 million? Or okay, if they surveyed people in a company, right? They were like, would you rather you get a $10,000 a year increase and everyone else gets a $10,000 a year increase? Or would you rather get a $2,000 increase, but no one else gets a $2,000 increase? And most people chose the $2,000 increase because
Yeah.
it's not about actually having more. It's about having more than your neighbor. That's what
And
makes you
others.
happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And it's just that lie of like, if I have this, I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna feel better than somebody else. But again,
Yeah.
once you hit a certain level, now you need more of that. Like, now you need more of that to feel good. Like, your dopamine levels, just your baseline is now just lower because now you need more
Yeah.
things in order to feel good.
Sure.
Um, and it's a lie that Satan like makes us believe, right? That this whole game that we're playing is a good game. Like, it's making you feel good, because it doesn't, right? Sure, it feels good, when you walk into a room and you're like, ooh, well, I make more money than this person, or I'm more handsome than that person, right? But it's not so fun when you find out that there's always going to be someone that's richer than you, more handsome than you, better than you in like any other way, right? And when you start playing this game, it's leading us to a lot of insecurities that we don't even realize we're getting from these things. And it's a lie from Satan again. It's a lie. And you mentioned something earlier about how, God's law isn't really, well, yeah, following God isn't really attractive. And it's it's another lie, right? You look at like David, for example, in the Psalms. David rejoiced in like the wonder of God's law. Like, you can picture David up at like 2 a.m. busy like just marveling at like how great God's law is, right? And it's like, it's a lie Satan has
Sure.
told us, that God is like this tyrant who's coming and he just wants to put rules so you don't enjoy life. It's like, bro, that law was made perfectly for you, because God. I love this analogy that God is our potter and we are the clay, right? Like, picture clay. It's like a clump, and you mold it like to
Mm.
form a pot.
Yeah.
You know every single inch of that pot. You've touched every single inch of that pot, right? And that's God with us. Like, He's formed us from head to toe, right? And He's
Yeah.
made that law and been like, this. If you follow this law, you will live the life that I want you to live, right? And there's so much goodness in that law, but Satan makes us feel like, no, it's not. It's not fun. It's not good, right? And then now we chase all these things in this world. We chase all this vapor. He makes us believe that, oh, if I feel I'm better than this person, then I'm going to be happy. But you're not, because there's always someone that's better
Sure.
than you. But yeah.
So good, bro. Yo, so many points you made there. But the one that stood out to me was like how, money doesn't become enough. So then it's like they want this godly status.
Yeah.
That was something that I just like, yo, it's so true. Especially, yeah, like politics now and stuff. Like, I mean, America's crazy now.
Yeah.
Like my whole, like when I go on YouTube, like my whole thing is Kamala Trump, Kamala Trump, Kamala Trump. And I'm just like, come on, like honestly, like it's so bad. And I used to like get consumed, like I used to watch a lot of those videos where there'll be Christian guys that are like they'll make videos just to get views based on that, like the whole debate. And sometimes they'll make good points and stuff, but like you can see the intentions behind the video. It's not to actually educate people, but rather to like get the views, get the clickbait going in, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is sad, like people lose heart when they get distracted. They lose heart in what they're supposed to be doing. They lose heart in their purpose and their journey and their will that God has placed them in, because they start like chasing views and stuff like that. And they use that, and they want to distract people in a way that gets them the glory and gets them the attention, which is Satan's strategy. Distract them to get them on his path. But yeah, like it was so good what you're saying. And yeah, one thing about the whole message of what we're trying to say is that like you need to put God first, to know that that is the only thing that you need to love the most in your life. Like there's going to be so much that happens in your life. There's going to be so many things that pop up. There's going to be so many could be a partner, okay, it could be a girl, it could be a guy that you start in that becomes a distraction because you're loving them more than you love God. You're putting them above the creator, okay?
Mhm.
And that's always something I think Alex Wilson said it, where he said like never put the created above the creator. Like never ever put anything above
Whoa.
God, right? Yeah. Alex is he's a crazy guy. Um
Yeah.
and it goes back to like the gift above the giver. What you were saying about Cliff's message, right?
Yeah.
Abraham and Isaac. And yeah, like we can always like put the created above the creator. Like we can always um idolize these things and put them first in our lives, but we realize that the simple and quiet life is the way. It is like the best way to live. And you look at Paul, okay, before Paul was Paul, he was Saul. And he used to kill Christians, like that was his job. King Saul, his job was to literally kill Christians. Before he became this writer of the New Testament, where he wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, um, he used to kill people. And um, there's obviously lies in that as well, where like Satan was using him in a way to do that, to find enjoyment in these things. But he realized that God had a purpose for him, and he encountered God and he changed. Okay, he encountered God and he changed. He had these distractions and he changed. And through his knowledge, okay, that's a lot of the letters of Paul are, he's educating people and he's saying, listen, like, we've come here to speak to you because of what we've been through. Like, these letters were written because he experienced those things and he wants to help us, right? A lot of the New Testament is helping us live in the way that God intended for us to live in. And he says, the simple and quiet life, make it your goal, make it your ambition, some versions say, to live the simple and quiet life. It's like a goal you attain to get to, right? And when you get to that simple and quiet space and you realize that the only thing you really need in your life is God, okay, when you get to that space and you get to that point in your life just becomes so much better, okay? And I know you're probably thinking, oh, okay, Darren, I've heard this a million times before. I really just need money, okay? If I had money, you don't understand. Like, I would be set for life. Like, I would be living my best life. I wouldn't have to ask for this, and that. If you were given like R1 billion, you would still need God. Okay, you would still need that simple and quiet life. Okay, like you think that that R1 billion gonna sort you out for the rest of your life. Like it probably won't even do that. Okay, and that's what we chase. We just chase money. We chase status, and it always leaves us feeling short. It always leaves us feeling empty inside. And yeah, the distractions are gonna get worse and worse. But yeah, I just wanted to leave that there.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you're saying about the whole, if I had money, bro, like I always say this one thing to like, I remember I did it like a while ago. It was like a month and a half ago or something. Because obviously we have plans like to create this like great like online community and stuff. And
Mhm.
I made like this. I was just chatting with God, and I made like this vow, and I felt so rebuked because literally the verse of the day. No, it wasn't the verse of the day. I was reading Ecclesiastes, and Solomon was like, "Never make a vow to God, and if you do, you must like pay up quickly." Right? I forgot like the whole context of the thing, but I felt really rebuked because literally the day before,
Mm.
right? Because I know the story of like I think it was Hannah. She was like, "Lord, if you just give me a son, like I promise to dedicate him to you." Right? And I
Mm.
guess it's a show of like her faith of like I'm showing like Lord, I'm fully trusting in you now, and if you give me, I'll fully dedicate it to you, right? And I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm like, Lord, if you like bless me, and I like start making like a lot of money and stuff, I promise, like literally all I want to do, Lord, like I have this vision for like starting a gents ministry at like our church. I have this vision of just having a nice like
Sure.
bachelor pad kind of house where the guys can come on a Saturday and breakfast is like laid out for everyone. And, we come and we do some worship, we'll watch a sermon, and then we'll break off
Mm.
into small groups. Then we'll play like some football and whatever. I'm like, Lord, if you just bless me with this, I promise I'll do all that.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
I'll pay for all the food at like outings and stuff. Like, Lord, I was like, just speaking like that. I'm like, bruh, um,
Yeah.
he who is faithful with a little is faithful with a lot. But I saw that
Amen.
verse. I was reading that verse the next day. I was feeling so rebuked. And Solomon was like, "Never make a vow to God, and if you do, you must pay up." Right? And I remember one of the vows I
Sure.
made. I was like, "Okay, cool. While I wait for that to happen, I'm going to show you like I'm going to be disciplined, and I'm going to like do my best to like create like good content and do this and that in my life."
Mm.
Literally within 2 days, I failed that vow, bro. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Crazy.
I
Yeah.
guess lesson learned, right? But I guess one thing I'm reminded of is Matthew 6, I think it's 28 to 33, the passage where it's Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is talking about, you know, do not be anxious, right? And he speaks about how, um, God knows every sparrow, right, that falls on the ground. There's not a sparrow on this planet that will, or there's not a bird on this planet that will fall to the ground and God doesn't know about it, right? And if He takes care of them, how much more will He take care of you? And then,
Mm.
consider the lilies, for example, right? And He's like, I guarantee you, not even Solomon in all of his glory was arrayed like one of these lilies, right? And if God dresses the lilies, how much more will He clothe you, right? Like how much more will he
Yeah.
clothe you? And it's just one of those where it's freeing. It really is. It's like freeing. Just being like, okay, I don't need to go up there and like do all these things, right? And this is a topic for a different time, but it's about how the Bible is not about you, and how the story of like
Yeah.
David and Goliath. You're not David, bro. You're literally the guy watching on the side, just in awe of God's glory. But like that's
Yeah.
something to rejoice about. I remember Matt Chandler was saying, it was like, take a breath of relief. Take a huge sigh of relief, because you don't have to take on all this pressure. You don't have to be God, right? You don't have to set the standard for
Yeah.
yourself that you can never reach, right? And it's so nice hearing that. If He dresses the lilies, how much more will He clothe you? If He watches over every sparrow, how much more does He love you? And it's like, it's just a nice little thing. But yeah, that's kind of what I was picking up from what you were saying. I just thought of that. But another thing I wanted to speak about was the whole idea of solitude. We were at Young Adults on Wednesday at this church, and they were speaking about spiritual disciplines, and one of them was solitude. And they made mention to how Jesus made regular practice of going off by Himself to just be with God,
Mm.
be by Himself. And it links back to what I was saying earlier on, that Matt Chandler was saying about how you can go on holiday and come back and not feel rested. Um, Jesus took time, just be away from the disciples, just to spend time alone with God. And I know for me personally, solitude is something I struggle with because I don't like being alone. Like I like being around people. But like having solitude, I remember you said this thing on Wednesday where we were saying that um, solitude is important because in that time, no one else has access to you but God. And it leads us back to that thing we're speaking about how there's no intimacy without intentionality. But I think that's an important practice we need to implement in this world full of
Mm.
distractions and stuff. Because
Yeah.
with all these things, we're trying to chase all these things. And it's like, how about you just spend some alone time with God, bro, and see how that goes. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Sure. So good. Yeah, I love that. That was one thing I love about Jesus is when um he just left the disciples, he just left the crowds, and he said, you know what, I need to spend time with my Father. Like, you guys
Yeah.
are important, you guys are cool, but I need to go and I need to talk to Him, and I need to spend time in prayer. That was one thing I loved about Jesus, and it's an
Mm,
example for us to do. Like, we need to sometimes leave the distractions. Okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, this, that, whatever. Leave that and go spend time with God. Like, sometimes you have to do that. Um, it's this what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, not no, it's like not irrational, but like, okay, it'll come to me, but it's basically just like unorthodox. Yes, that's the word. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like this unorthodox approach to spending time with God, where it's like, yes, I have to do this and that, and I have this to-do list for the day. Just sometimes you need to just go spend time with God. Like, if God calls you and He wants you, and you need to speak to God, like, sometimes it just means doing that. And that's what Jesus did. Like, the people were waiting on for the sermon, and they're waiting for Jesus to preach, and they're like, okay, where is this guy? Like, we've been here for this long, we need Him to come preach to us, this, that, whatever. Selfish ambition, pride, okay, we
Yeah.
need Him, this, that, whatever. Not No humility, okay. And Jesus is like, listen, they can wait, I'm spending time with God, okay. And I think there was a time where, like, John the Baptist got beheaded, and he went to go mourn, like, by himself. Like, he needed that time to think about what just happened.
Yeah.
Um, and like, and the disciples didn't even care about that. They were just like, okay, God, like, there's so many people, we can't control them. We needed to speak to them. Um, and Jesus was like, stop, like, I need to spend time with God. And sometimes we need to
Yeah.
do that. Okay, like, we're gonna have distractions, we're gonna have things that are gonna pop up in our lives, but they are definitely not important than God. Like, they don't come close to that. Okay. So that's something like I wanted to speak about there. And then also, a quote I heard by, again, Alex Wilson. He said that true freedom isn't doing whatever you want whenever you want. It's doing the right thing at the right time. That's true freedom.
Mm,
And that's brought me to your point about Matt Chandler like taking the holiday with his family, right? Like, it's doing the right thing at the right time. It's truly resting and a Sabbath. Okay, what Gideon does right on Sundays is you giving that time to God. It's not that he's doing nothing and he's watching like football and he's just relaxing on his couch, whatever. It's like you spending that time with God. You
yeah,
relaxing with Him. That is your rest. You get peace when you spend time with God. Um, that's how peace works, right? It's like you giving it to God, you praying, you know. Um, David had that faith where like he just cried out to God. He sang songs to God, 150 psalms that show that, right? It's like it's giving it to Him. Come to me, all of you who are weary, okay, and I will give you rest. Who gives you rest? Does TikTok give you rest? Does Instagram give you rest? Does YouTube give you rest? Does football give you rest watching a 2 hour game? No. Come to me, all of you who are weary, and I will give you rest. Matthew, okay, it says that in Matthew. God gives you the rest. When you give Him your time, He gives you the rest. When you give Him your time, He gives you the peace. Okay, we don't expect it. Okay, we shouldn't be expecting this reward, but we should just do it because we actually love Him, because we want to give Him the time that we have on earth. Um, and yeah, it comes back to offer yourself as a holy and pleasing sacrifice. Romans 12 verse 1. I quote that verse all the time because it's so like applicable to every topic that we speak about. Like, you want to learn how to pray more, devote yourself to God. You want to learn how to evangelize, devote yourself to God. Sacrifice those things in your life. um JP says it, puts it very nicely. Add the things in your life that are going to take you closer to God, and subtract the things that are taking you away from Him. Okay, those
mm,
distractions, okay, you need to take them out. And Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell said this. He said, like, in Matthew 5, where it speaks about if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. That verse, right? He uses that analogy. He uses an analogy where he says, like, the reason it's cut off is because what you need to do is you need to acknowledge the sin, and you need to actually like cut it off. Like, you need to picture yourself like literally like taking a sword and like splitting it in half and like cutting it off. That's what that verse means. It's to acknowledge those sins, and it's to literally cut it off. And it's like, okay, not literally cut it off, but I mean, you're doing it. You got to picture yourself like cutting it in half, like you literally like destroying it. That's how it should be, with those distractions, so that you don't go back to it. It's destroyed, so you don't go back to it. Um, which yeah, that's all I really had to add there.
yeah, no, I don't have too much to add. I'm just reminded of that one quote by Tony Robbins, where he's like, if you want to take the
Mm,
island, you burn the ships because you want to cut off any way of like
sure.
going back. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, no, I don't have anything else to add, and I don't know if you have anything else you want to speak about. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
No, I don't have too much to add, but yeah, that's a powerful quote. But yeah, guys, like, we hope you really helped by this, and that you sort of got an idea of why, distractions are really the evil things that are keeping us away from God, and the things that are really are really taking you away from the part that He has for you. Okay, God has His part, He has His plan, He has His purpose, and then you get Satan and his plan and his purpose. And there's two choices in life: you follow your flesh, or you follow the Spirit. And we really hope that after this video, you will learn to follow your Spirit more, and that you'll learn to, be guided by the Spirit. And that all comes from reading your Word. Okay, it comes from getting to the Word of God, and living the simple and quiet life, what we mentioned. But yeah, guys, it was an amazing topic. I love speaking about this, and we went
Yeah,
on for an hour and a half. Thank you guys for
yeah,
always, like, if you've stayed this long, we always say this, but genuinely, like, that is amazing. It's amazing. The goal of this podcast is to, if at least one person is helped by this, we've done our duty. And we love doing this. And yeah, guys, we can't wait to keep doing more episodes. Next week's episode 40, which is insane. Can't
yeah.
believe that we've hit the 40 mark already, which is crazy. But
Hmm.
yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you really need a community of like-minded, Christ-like-minded believers, okay, please look at the link in the description down below. Join that on the Discord, and yeah, it's just we meet up every Monday at 5:30 Central African time, and we just talk about God. We talk about actually what we've spoken about on the podcast. So tomorrow's Connect group will be about distractions, okay, and how we can, um, get rid of those and how we can get closer to God. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoy the week, and we shall see you next week, same time. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.